Hello, I'm Ron Miscavige, and this is Life After Scientology. We had a little rough start this morning, but now we're on the air. Okay, anyway, as they say, stuff happens. Now, guys, let me get the show on the road, and then you can discuss this, okay? We just had a little bit of a kerfluffle here. We have a new man on the board, which he's doing well, but his first time. He's solo flying today. Anyway, so for right now, I'd like to welcome you to the show. And that song that you heard is a song called Jazzalujah. That's on my website, The Real Ron Miscavige. And if you'd like to hear the rest of it, you can go there. And actually, I think you can purchase it. Well, I know you can purchase it there. This morning, we have a show. We have Carriere on. But this is going to be something, we're getting right into the nerve center of this whole issue with the Church of Scientology. And by the way, we're going to take super chats this morning, so just to let you know that. So, Karen, good morning.
Good morning. Hi, everybody.
Okay. Anyway, I just want to say that this is a subject that it's covered a lot, but I'd like to get into it in depth this morning. Do you agree, Karen?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you had a point that we were talking about before the show started, and that was how somebody can turn their loyalty from a parent to something else that supersedes that loyalty. Do you want to get into that to begin with? Because I have some thoughts on it too.
It's more than loyalty. There's a deep bond of love. It's a natural flowing love between parents and their own offspring. You know, they've been with this baby child since birth. In my case, I had a C-section and an epidural, and I gave birth to Alexander. There's some incredible bond. Did you attend the birth of your children, Ron?
No, in my day, which was way before you had your baby, that wasn't done. But I was at the hospital for every minute of it, but I wasn't in the room. But I remember when they brought out my children and I saw them for the first time. I want to back up what you just said. There was an immediate bond, and I can't even explain what it is, but it's this overwhelming feeling of love that you have for this new body that a human being has, and the spirit has now a way to take part in life. And it is special. I will say that. I can't quite describe it other than saying it's an overwhelming feeling of love.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And that is hard to change. It's almost like the love goes into more dimensions as the baby turns to toddler and starts talking and so on. So the Church of Scientology pulls off something beyond belief where it can turn your children or turn the parents against the kids or the kids against the parents. And that's the theme of this half-hour show today.
Then let me give you my thoughts on it. I'll start out. I'll give you my thoughts why I think this happens and how it happens. Look, as a baby, as a child, your mother and father, or in some cases only your mother, or maybe only your father, but whatever, your parent is your stable point in life. You align your life to your parents. I know this because until I went in the Marine Corps, my mother and father were my stable datums in life. I knew that no matter what, they were there for me. When I went in the Marine Corps, and after the boot camp, which is not bad, I mean, it's very tough physically and mentally, but it teaches you discipline, which is great. Even that point of having so much discipline that I could display in life, it took away a little bit from my depending on my parents. You follow me? And as I just continue to live life, I became less and less dependent. That doesn't mean I didn't love them, but I became more my own person. Now, with the child and the church daily brainwashing you into thinking you're part of a greater movement than just a mommy and daddy and a family. You're part of a movement that is senior to all of life, because what we're doing is going to change conditions for your parents, for your friends, for the better, which is done continually on a daily basis if you go on study. And it is a lie. But that lie continuing to be input into you changes your stable point from your parents and the love you have for your friends, even into love for this supposed higher purpose, which is bullshit. But it does that. Do you see my point? And that's my observation. I reserve the right to be wrong, but I really do feel that that is what takes place. And that's my opinion. And that's after 42 years being involved with the cult, 26 and a half of it on staff. Observing this happening around me, I think that is what happens.
It's a love only me cult.
You're right.
You must only love the mother church.
Yep.
To hell with your other relationships and so on.
That's exactly right.
And I've had emails from people who have complained that the cult frowns on you as a parent sending gifts and money to your own child in the seal. They call it external influence.
Yeah.
Don't like it. So now they take it a step further. You're not allowed to have a relationship of love and giving once your kid is in the C organization.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible, but it's true. And what we're telling you this morning, I wish it weren't this way, but it is. And what Karen is saying is absolutely the way it is. It is considered to be an external influence. It's wild.
And slowly, they want to cut, too many phone calls home.
Yeah.
Too much they really work on cutting that line so that you are church dependent, or that you only turn to the cult. I'm not going to use the word church. This is an outright cult.
Yeah.
So that you are cult dependent for everything. Your advice, soul nourishment, all that. I want to get into your story, but I do have one more comment to make. It isn't just estranging you from your parents and immediate family. It's actually asking you to turn against them.
Yeah.
Spy on them. Knowledge report them. Find out if they're looking at the internet and write a report on it. They literally make your child into an agent for them. That's heavy.
This is what was done in Nazi Germany with the children. Hitler's youth would turn their parents into the Gestapo.
My son was absolutely trained to spy on me. I'll get into that later.
Yeah.
First, I want to get into Ron. Your story is what Hollywood movies are made out of. The West Alice Police by you tell the story.
Well, I'll tell it, but I'll tell you, when I was writing the book, as I described it in the book, I thought to myself, this is something that some Hollywood scriptwriter would write. And then some people would say, that's unbelievable. That's bullshit. Nobody's going to believe that. Anyway, my story, I'll tell you. And I've told it before, but I can get into maybe some more details on it now. First of all, I didn't wake up one day and say, we're going to leave the Church of Scientology staff, okay? We thought about it for actually years, and there was some mitigating things that were taking place that we just couldn't leave. One of them was my wife had some problems where she had lumps on her breasts, and she was getting examined and everything, and we had no medical insurance. So if we were to leave, we would have a hell of a time trying to pay for that. As it turned out, after the final examination, they absolutely found that these were benign and there was not a problem. That was at the point where we decided that we could leave. We planned our escape for 6 months in detail as to what we're going to take, how we're going to outsmart the guards on the gate. And the simple way of doing it was on Sunday morning when we have Clean Ship Project, CSP, we would go from the southern part of the base to the north side, and I would go into the studio and take some salami out of the refrigerator that was there, or cheese that I had, and I'd drive back through the main gate and give it to the guards. So I was getting them acclimatized to my going over every Sunday morning at 9 o'clock and me coming back and giving them a little treat. Basically, I was feeding the watchdogs. Anyway, the day came, and we went to there's two gates. There's the west gate and there's the main gate. We went to the west gate. I put my finger on the buzzer, and the guard didn't even ask me what I was doing. He knew I was going to go across the street. He opened the gate, and I said to my wife, Becky, we're turning left. I turned left, and I put my foot right to the board. We were going about 70 or 80 by the time I got 1 mile down the road. And it was 3 ways you could go. You could turn to the right, which is Route 10 that would take you to L.A. You could go straight to Route 60, or you could turn left to go into town. I knew by the time the chase car was informed that I was leaving, by the time he got there.
Now, Ron, I don't want that to go by too fast. What you said, chase car.
Okay.
When you try to leave, they hound and chase you down like prey.
Oh, yeah. No, this...
So explain what chase car means.
Okay, there is a guy, one of the security guards, who was assigned to the chase car. And it's a car designed so that if anybody were to try to escape, they would go out on the road and chase you down in that car. And that's why it's called that. And I knew that by the time the main guard at the booth called Sal was the guy who was driving the chase car. And by the time he got to the gate, I would have made my move on these 3 choices I had. And the move was to turn left and go into town. He absolutely would think I took Route 10 or Route 60. And either way, it was the wrong decision. So once I turned left and I couldn't see his car in back of me, I knew that we were free. So we drove across the nation 2.5 days using cash to pay for gas, to pay for motels. We stayed in a motel 2 of the nights. So if I had used my credit card, they had a guy there who could trace where you used your credit card, and they would fly somebody out to where I was and try to intercept me. Now, we picked Wisconsin. I'm married to a younger woman, and her mother was living in Whitewater, Wisconsin. We picked that place to go because I knew if I had chosen to go to Florida where my daughters were, and security found out about it, they would have let him in the house, and they physically would have seized me and my wife, mainly because I'm a high security risk because I'm the father of the chairman of the board. So we picked Wisconsin for that reason. And about 2 weeks later, there were 2 people that came there to try to get me back, Greg Wilher and Marion Powell. And they tried for a couple of days, which was unsuccessful. And at that point, I decided to go to visit with my son in Virginia. And we moved down to Virginia for a while, but then came back after about 6 months. Now, about 15 months after I left, in other words, I came to Whitewater, stayed there for a little while. We went to Virginia to spend some time with my son. And actually, on the way out, we visited with my nephews in Pennsylvania. But when I came back, it was about 1.5 years, and I bought a house in Milwaukee area, which is a town called West Allis. Now, we move in, And one day, I get a call when, we hadn't moved in yet, but I got a call from the Whitewater Police. They said, we want to inform you that you've been followed. And I said, really? What about this? They said, well, the people from the Church of Scientology have been following you, and they were caught in West Dallas. Anyway, I met with the cops in Whitewater, and they searched my car for a GPS, which they couldn't find one because it had been taken out. But the PIs, the private investigators, had placed the GPS on my car. So then I was called up to West Dallas to speak to the guy who actually apprehended him. And that was a guy by the name of Nick Pye. At the time, he was a detective. Right now, he's a lieutenant, and he runs the day shift in the police force up here. One of the nicest individuals you'll ever meet in your life. And tough. He looks like a linebacker for the Packers. No, when you see him, you think, this guy could probably bench press 400 pounds. And as it worked out, I asked him one day, how much can you bench press? He says, about 400 pounds. So he's the type of guy that you don't want to give him any shit if he's talking to you. And what happened is they caught a private investigator going looking in the windows of a house across the street from mine to see how it was laid out. And a neighbor saw him and called the cops and said, I think there's a drug dealer out here or something. Nick Pye went out, caught the guy. He said, what are you doing? He says, what, am I breaking the law? So he started giving Nick some shit, and Nick says, hey, I'll tell you what, man, you're under arrest. Can I look in your car? The guy says, yes. He looked in the car, and in the trunk of that car, there were 5 license plates from 5 different states, 5 handguns, a stun gun, 2 rifles, 1 fitted up with a silencer, and over 2,000 rounds of ammunition. This is what this guy was carrying in his car. Needless to say, he was taken to the police station and interrogated. And a day later, his son came up and was interrogated. And by the way, for those of you listening, if you want to listen to exactly what took place in that interrogation, it's on my website, therealronmiscavige.com. You can hear the entire interrogation. So now, getting back to this story.
Let's hit a pause button here. A stun gun is a real menacing tool. A stun gun is something that uses force to such a degree that you're immobilized momentarily.
Oh yeah, you'll just go.
That's malicious. That's a heavy. That's a tool to paralyze your target.
Right.
For a brief moment of time, but it's also very painful. No.
Well, it just fucks up your nervous system, and you fall to the ground like
fall to the ground. You just collapse
like a puppet.
And then the other thing you said was this private investigators stalking you secretly and covertly had a silencer. What is a silencer, Ron? I know what it is, but
a silencer.
Let's tell the audience what a silencer is.
A silencer is it's an apparatus that you would put on the front of the barrel of a pistol or a rifle, and it's designed to silence it so it would be used, let's say, for an execution or like an assassination of somebody, so you couldn't tell where the shot came from. Now, they convinced the police that they just had it on there for fun. That they had it made because they wanted to see how it was. That may be true, but the fact remains they had a silencer fitted to a rifle and 2,000 rounds of ammunition.
I think that's just nonsense.
Yeah.
You don't carry a silencer for fun.
Right. Okay.
But what I want to say is, whether it was the son or the father, one of them quacked to the West Dallas police that they were being paid $10,000 a week to survey you.
$10,000 a week. That's right. And
$10,000 a week.
Well, that's $500,000 a year.
Right.
So now
to silently survey you, watch you, stalk you, and report it all to David Miscavige, your son.
That's exactly right.
$500,000 of money gouged out of, people go bankrupt. They take out second trust deeds. They donate to the church, donate. Here's where money goes.
Yeah.
Don't think for a moment that David Miscavige paid for that out of his own money. You don't get $500,000 as a Sea Org member.
No. Well, anyway, to
to
continue on with this, let me tell you what happened at the West Dallas Police Station. Because after they interrogated these PIs, they called me to come up there, and I met Nick Pye there, and he said, I'm the guy who interrogated them, and he took me in a room, and he says, we can listen to this now. He says, but do you have any idea why they were following you? And I said, well, probably because I'm the father of the chairman of the board, so I'd be considered a high security risk. And then maybe David was a little concerned about my health because I've had some heart issues. And he says, hey, man, listen, I got to tell you this. I don't want to, but I have to because this is important that you know it. You were shopping in a shopping center in Janesville, a place called Aldi's. And you come out of that store and you were carrying some bags of groceries. You went to your car, this is the summertime, and you opened the door to put the bags in there, but your cell phone was in your shirt pocket on the left side. They saw this. You put the groceries in the car, and you bent over, and you thought your cell phone was going to fall out, so you grabbed your left chest with your arm. The private investigator saw this, and the father said, look, it looks like our target is having a heart attack. What shall I do? No, the son said that. And the father says, I'm going to call in. So he called his contact, which was a guy by the name of Greg. I probably think it was Greg Woolhair, but I don't know that for sure. But his name was Greg, and they say this on the interrogation. And Greg says, okay, listen, let me call you back in a few minutes. A few minutes went by. A voice came on the phone, identified himself as David Miscavige, and he said, listen, if it's his time to die, let him die. Don't intervene. Don't do anything. Now, when Nick told me this, I thought, wait a minute. I wouldn't let a stranger die if I saw him having a heart attack. I'd call 911. The long and short of it is that the father said to the son, listen, if this happens again, you call 911. But don't go there because they'll think you're trying to help and our cover may be blown, but call 911. So when that was told to me, that was a little different than I would expect for my own son, who I saw when he was born and just had, as I said earlier in the program, had this overwhelming feeling of love for him and Denise and Ronnie and Lori. I mean, you have this unmitigated feeling of love, and for him to say, let him die, well, to put it mildly, I was disappointed. All right. Now,
well, that's what Scientology will do to someone.
They will do that, yeah. And
this
will
guy
David
was raised in the cult, second generation, and it's look at the hypocrisy. The one dynamic phrase in all of Scientology, the principle of existence, is one word: survive.
Yep.
Survive. He did not have the level of affection, loyalty, duty, because he essentially was saying, let him just die. Do not resuscitate. Do not use everything in your power to make hospitals. Do everything to make that person survive once you're there and you're kind of fading out. He said, let him go. Yeah. Let him die. That's the callousness and maliciousness. We're not talking about a stranger to a stranger.
No.
We're talking about a boy to his own father.
Yeah. Well,
that's what David Miscavige has morphed into. To callously say, let him die.
Yeah.
If he, Let him just die.
That changed it.
That is
And
Scientology's influence on David Miscavige.
let me tell you, Karen, up until that point, all I wanted to do was get on with life. And a scene happened after that where I went to Florida to take down a recording of the interview, and I was going to play it to my daughters. And my one daughter's husband said, "We're through with you and Becky forever." That was it. I decided I would write a book. As you know, I've written a book. It's called Ruthless. It's right there. And that hit number one on the New York Times bestseller list on May 6th, 2016. And it was number one for the month.
Yes.
So, and I'm here doing interviews. I'm exposing them. I'm doing something about it. I'm doing something about exposing this to as many people as I possibly can in the hopes that somebody, somewhere along the way, will know somebody in the government who has enough balls to do something about saying, hey, you're not a church. You're a racket. Take their tax exemption away and let them survive on producing products that they can deliver, because they don't deliver what they promise right now anyway. All they deliver is disconnection, misery, bankrupt people who take second mortgages on their home that they can't pay for it, lose their home, giving up college education money from their kids. That's their product. So, bottom line is,
that's
I'm
very,
doing something about it, and so are you, and I appreciate that, Karen.
Ron, I want to tell you that there was an exact moment in time when you decided. Was it the moment that the detectives told you that your own son said, if he's going to die, let him die? Or if it's time for him to die, just let him die. Don't do anything. Just let him croak. In other words, your son.
Yeah.
Was that the moment in time you decided to write your book, or you decided to really come out and reveal and expose it? Was that the exact moment? Or was it when you went to see your daughters in Florida and got the note that you were going to be disconnected forever?
Okay, no, it wasn't when I was told that by Nick, because it was so shocking to me. I don't think it actually sank in 100%. Do you follow me? I was like in disbelief. Well, I didn't want to believe it. Let's put it that way. But when Denise's husband said, Denise and I are through with you and Becky forever, it was at that moment I said, you know what? Fuck you. I'm writing a book. I'm gonna expose you guys. That was the exact moment. If that hadn't happened, if they would have listened to the tape and say, well, gee, I don't know, maybe our thoughts are wrong on this, I don't know what would have happened. But here I am. I wrote a book. I do interviews like this with people like Karen and people who know what the church is about, which is not what they say they're about. It's a completely different agenda than what you hear them say.
Yeah.
I could tell you all day long, I'm an elephant. You fucking look at me. I'm not an elephant. And this is what they're doing. They're saying they're this compassionate group that's going to change the lives of every man, woman, and child on the planet. That's a lie.
Even though we have other stuff to talk about, you've jogged my memory on my moment. When did I decide? Let me tell you, I had worked like a dog for several years, 60-hour weeks, 70-hour weeks, 80-hour weeks. In those days, in the 70s and 80s, they paid you like $15 a week for 60-hour weeks.
Yeah, I know.
I believed it. We're helping people and we can make a difference and we've got good therapy questions. I believed. Anyway, one day, this is my moment. I got to tell my story. One day I was summoned to Finance Ethics Officer, his office, Don Larson.
Right.
I had nothing to do with finance. I couldn't believe that I'd be summoned, because he was known as a sort of terrorist, internal terrorist. He was bad news. He sentenced people to, RP. He had ultimate power over any of the flock. And he made me wait outside his office for 2 hours. Useless,
Yeah.
just to get me worked out. Just waited like a donkey for obeying this bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
And when I came in, and he looked at some telexes and says, I'm going to have you go on the RPF. You're not going in the RPF, you're going on the RPF.
Jesus Christ.
On means you're going to keep that schedule, you're going to do that slave labor, you're going to eat Oliver Twist stuff, but you're not in the RPF, you're on the RPF.
Right.
Committee of Evidence. And I said, for what? What are the charges? And he said, you've been shuffling class 12s out of the FSO. Huh? Can you imagine in the Sea Org with their security that you can shuttle people out of the Sea Org? I mean, they're just complete and utter bogus. And you know what? In that moment of time, hearing that lie, I decided this was a crooked group.
Yeah.
And I would never be under the power and subjugation of a bunch of criminal crooks that lied, cheated, stole your life, stole your labor. I decided at that moment I had bet on the wrong horse.
Well,
I had joined the wrong group. I decided my day will come when I will expose their rotten core. That was my moment of deciding I could not be subjugated to a bunch of evil thugs.
well, I'll tell you.
Anyway,
that's a wonderful.
You talked about your moment. There
Yeah.
is a moment, a conscious moment of deciding. Wow.
Well, there you go. And I'll tell you, Karen.
I'm in bed with an enemy group that isn't there for your survival, but is there to squash, humiliate, smash you into the size of a subatomic particle.
Yep, that's exactly
Well,
it.
how's that working out for them now? I have a voice.
Well, you have a voice and you have a platform here anytime, Karen. And I'll tell you, I think we hit what we would call the end phenomena of this show. What do you think?
I think so. We can, we've got, yes.
Yeah.
You see, you can decide to be, first of all, everybody is a free spirit.
Yep.
They are completely autonomous and completely own their own domain, if you could put it in language of internet, right? Nobody should agree to be squashed and subjugated by any group ever.
I agree. And on that point,
the drive in Scientology is not to make you survive, but to be an obedient little robot.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Take away every freedom you have and squash you down, humiliate you, So anyway, I don't want to keep going. You are completely a free being, and you don't ever keep that freedom when you join a cult.
Nope, you don't. And it's a good lesson to learn. I hope you got that a little bit out of that from this program, because I think that's the first time I ever told that story about my leaving in detail.
Yeah.
And Karen, I appreciate you. Yeah,
your heart was beating.
Yeah, and you let me go, and I appreciate that.
Thrill of exhilaration.
Yeah.
Being chased down.
Okay, so listen, if you want to find out more about what I do, you go to my website, therealronmiscavige.com. You can see that I've written books. I do things called the show called Life Lessons, and another one called Story Time. And if you'd like to help out in this endeavor, you can become a Patreon. So, anything there for me? No? Okay. I was just talking to my new producer here. He's a wonderful guy. He's brilliant. We had a little rough start, but you know what the hell? That goes with the territory. And this is live, so it's not edited or anything, so you hear all the shit that goes on in the background here. And that's Life After Scientology. So from me to you, and thanks again, Karen. No kidding. I really appreciate this. And I'd like to say I'll see you on the next episode, the next interview. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye, Ron. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, Karen.